Hello, I'm Matthew Hendrickson, and today I'll be presenting the 2026 Aquatic Invasive Species Prevention and Management Plan. This will cover the 7 district lakes listed here with details relating to both specific plan management activities for each water body, along with the district's wide AIS program development plans. Pictured here is the 2026 district-wide AIS management programs, estimated funding, and expenses. Estimated total funding for 2026 AIS management, which includes the watercraft inspection program, is $153,200, whereas the estimated expenses for 2026 will be approximately $153,059. The total funding is estimated as there are several potential grants through Washington County that have yet to be awarded. Though in 2026 it is expected that these grant amounts will be similar to that which was awarded in 2025, whereas expenses are estimated as many of the AIS activities will be determined by future delineation surveys that will be conducted by Blue Water Science. Here is a graph that shows the historical AIS treatment acreage for the 3 largest lakes located in the district: Bone Lake, Comfort Lake, and Forest Lake. The district has managed curly-leaf pondweed on all 3 of these lakes over the years. Additionally, a unique population of flower and rush on Forest Lake that can spread by seed is also included in annual AIS management activities. While the district no longer conducts Eurasian water milfoil treatments, it still coordinates and funds delineation and assessment surveys that are used by local lake associations for Eurasian water milfoil treatment. Let's begin at Moody Lake. The district activated the aeration system February 11th for the 11th consecutive winter after monitoring indicated dissolved oxygen was approaching the 5 milligrams per liter threshold. The purpose of this is to increase dissolved oxygen, reducing winter fish kill, and support a healthy fisheries that suppresses invasive fish populations. As for curly-leaf pondweed, no treatment has been conducted for Moody Lake since 2020. In 2026, district staff will perform the necessary AIS assessment surveys to determine if curly-leaf pondweed treatments will be necessary for future planning purposes. Additionally, staff will perform an assessment of the 2023 native aquatic plant transplant project by performing a point intercept survey that incorporates the transplant site locations to further evaluate the project's effectiveness. The Moody Lake AIS funding had $7,400 in the original budget for curly-leaf pondweed survey work, with an additional point intercept macrophyte or aquatic plant survey being included. As district staff learn both the curly-leaf pondweed delineation/assessment surveys and the point intercept survey, it is suggested that this money be transferred to another AIS management expense, though it would be recommended that before any action is taken, the initial 2026 AIS survey work should be conducted to determine the most effective use of this funding. Moving on to Bone Lake, the 2026 AIS management activities will continue to be determined by Blue Water Science initial delineation surveys for both curly-leaf pondweed and Eurasian water milfoil. Treatments for curly-leaf pondweed have occurred in the last 5 of the 11 years, with the latest being in 2025 for 3.66 acres. No milfoil management has been necessary since 2016. Here we have the Bone Lake historical AIS treatment graph. It is worth noting that on years that require curly-leaf pondweed management, the average treatment acreage is 3.90 acres, which is comparable to the treatment conducted in 2025 of 3.66 acres. Staff will continue the Zebra Mussel Plate program in 2025 with the assistance of volunteer citizen lakeshore owners. The inlet and outlet barriers typically require minimal annual maintenance efforts. However, it is worth noting in 2025 there was some additional maintenance needed at the Bone Lake outlet because of ice heave damage. As for watercraft inspection program, activities on Bone Lake, 545.1 watercraft inspector hours have been allocated to Bone Lake, though this may be increased by 20 to 40 hours through additional funding provided by the Bone Lake Association. Pictured here is the Bone Lake 2026 budget summary. In 2026, the AIS funding will be $18,609, whereas the estimated expenses are $18,430. The majority of the available funding will be used for the watercraft inspection program, 69%, whereas the remaining 31% is designated for AIS management activities related to curlyleaf pondweed and Eurasian water milfoil. Traversing downstream to Little Comfort, district staff will perform the necessary AIS and early detection surveys. Where curlyleaf pondweed had historically sparse growth in Little Comfort, and district staff will continue to monitor the overall growth to determine if future treatments would be necessary. Similar to curlyleaf pondweed, Eurasian water milfoil populations have continued to remain at a low density. For reference, in 2025, staff joined Blue Water Science for an aquatic plant meander survey on Little Comfort, where only 2 of the 55 sites sampled had observable milfoil light growth. As mentioned previously, district staff will perform the necessary AIS and early detection surveys for Little Comfort. In the past, observations regarding both curlyleaf pondweed and Eurasian water milfoil growth characteristics on Little Comfort, there is likely no ecological or recreational threat, which has resulted in no treatments being budgeted for 2026. Moving our attention to Shields Lake, the district activated the aeration system January 31st for the 11th consecutive winter, after monitoring indicated dissolved oxygen was approaching the 5 mg per liter threshold. In 2026, any potential curlyleaf pondweed treatments will be determined by the Spring Blue Water Science Delineation Survey, though in years that have required curlyleaf management, the average treatment acreage is 2.89 acres. It is worth noting that in 2025, Blue Water Science observed areas with potential heavy growth but did not recommend any treatment to promote native aquatic plant growth. Pictured here is a young curlyleaf pondweed sprouting from a turion or winter bud that was found under the ice at Shields Lake during the winter monitoring. This represents one of the advantages curlyleaf pondweed has over other aquatic plants, as typically this time of year native vegetation remains dormant until after seasonal ice-off and water temperatures begin to rise. In 2026, the AIS estimated funding for Shields Lake is $3,300. As there is the potential for heavy curlyleaf pondweed growth as indicated by the 2025 Blue Water Science Survey, it may be required to perform more intensive curlyleaf pondweed management activities, and thus the estimated expenses for 2026 are $4,205. As for Lake Keewatin, in 2026, district staff will perform the necessary AIS tracking and early detection surveys required. In 2025, staff performed a purple loosestrife shoreline assessment to locate sites suitable for biocontrol management efforts. A suitable location was identified adjacent to Keewatin Ave and Highway 97, as it is easily accessed with a high population density. In 2026, district staff will implement a purple loosestrife biocontrol management effort, following DNR beetle rearing and releasing guidelines. Additionally, staff will create a guidance document and potential outreach plan with the purpose of assessing the feasibility of expanding this into a citizen volunteer program in 2027 or future years. No AIS funding has been budgeted for Lake Keewatin, as district staff will perform all necessary AIS survey work, and all required materials for the purple loosestrife beetle rearing are already available or will be provided by the Minnesota DNR at no additional cost. Shifting our focus to Forest Lake, where historically much of the AIS management efforts have taken place. In 2026, AIS management activities will continue to be determined by Blue Water Science initial delineation surveys for both curlyleaf pondweed and Eurasian water milfoil. Additionally, it is worth noting that it has been confirmed with the DNR that herbicide restrictions will continue to be in place for 2026, similar to those enacted in 2025. This is because of the stocked walleye fry that are potentially susceptible to dicot. As for Eurasian water milfoil, the district will continue to provide the Forest Lake Lake Association with the annual surveys conducted by Blue Water Science. That will then be used by the Lake Association for coordinating any Eurasian water milfoil treatments for 2026. Additionally, zebra mussel sampler plates will continue to be deployed with the assistance of volunteer citizen lakeshore owners. In 2024, we had seen a large spike in zebra mussel population density, but then this was declined in 2025. It will be interesting to see if in 2026 how the zebra mussel population trends develop. Flowering rush AIS management for Forest Lake will continue in 2026, and overall the abundance of flowering rush has continued to decline over the years. As for the watercraft inspection program, activities on Forest Lake, with the 3 public launches, we tend to see the greatest number of boater traffic occurring here. As a result, 2,401 hours of watercraft inspector hours have been planned for 2026. But it's worth recognizing that the Conservation Corps team member will be contributing an estimated 208 inspection hours, and the DNR with 525 inspection hours donated. Similar to Lake Keewatin, staff performed purple loosestrife shoreline assessment to locate sites suitable for biocontrol management efforts. A suitable location was identified adjacent to the Third Lake public launch, as it is easily accessed with a high purple loosestrife population density. In 2026, district staff will implement the purple loosestrife biocontrol management efforts following DNR beetle rearing and releasing guidelines. Pictured here is the Forest Lake Historical AIS treatment graph. As previously mentioned, a large portion of the district's annual AIS management has been performed on Forest Lake. Years that require curlyleaf pondweed management, the average treatment acreage is 103.06 acres. Though in 2025, we observed a large spike in curlyleaf pondweed growth that resulted in the treatment of 167.44 acres. It is worth noting that the 2025 Blue Water Science Assessment Survey indicated good curlyleaf pondweed treatment results in the zones treated. Whereas the greatest success can be observed in the flowering rush pre- and post-treatment annual results as the flowering rush population continues to trend downward. Pictured here is the Forest Lake 2026 budget summary. In 2026, the AIS funding will be approximately $107,716, where the estimated expenses are $110,813. The majority of the available funding, 62%, will be used for curlyleaf pondweed and flowering rush management. This boils down to 48% for curlyleaf pondweed and 14% for flowering rush. This is followed by 35% of the available funding being used for watercraft inspection program. As mentioned before, the DNR will provide additional coverage at the Forest Lake 1 public launch. The tri-party agreement will also be presented at the March 12th board meeting, so I will not be covering it in full detail. For 2026, the tri-party agreement covers the first $150,000 spent on Forest Lake AIS. Any additional expenses beyond that are the responsibility of the spending party. The city will contribute $63,750 along with the district, and the Forest Lake Lake Association will contribute $22,500. Though I did want to highlight the proposed changes that would take place with the 3-year agreement that is currently under consideration. Potential increases in 2027 and 2028 would help account for rising expenses for AIS management. Finally, we arrive at Comfort Lake. The 2026 AIS management activities will continue to be determined by Blue Water Science initial delineation surveys for both curlyleaf pondweed and Eurasian water milfoil. No treatments were performed in 2025, though it is worth noting that in 2024 there was a curlyleaf pondweed treatment for the first time since 2015. As for Eurasian water milfoil in 2025, the initial Blue Water Science survey indicated no treatments were necessary, though a follow-up assessment survey indicated a potential area with light to moderate growth that may require a treatment in 2026. Pictured here is the Comfort Lake historical AIS treatment areas from 2014 until 2025 for both curlyleaf pondweed and Eurasian water milfoil. For years that required curleaf pondweed treatments, the average acreage is 5.23 acres. As for Eurasian water milfoil, the average treatment acreage is 4.66 acres, not including the whole lake treatment that was conducted in 2022. In 2026, the Comfort Lakes Association will likely continue to participate in the zebra mussel monitoring program being piloted by the University of Minnesota. As for carp management, staff will continue to investigate potential partnerships and funding for a carp movement study that builds upon the carp population study that was commissioned by the Comfort Lakes Association in 2024. Finally, in 2026, the Watercraft Inspection Program will provide approximately 530 hours of inspections at the Comfort Lake public launch. Pictured here is the Comfort Lake 2026 budget summary. The AIS funding will be approximately $16,175, whereas the estimated expenses are $17,612. The majority of the available funding, 71%, will be used for the Watercraft Inspection Program, whereas the remaining 29% of the expenses will be used for curleaf pondweed management and Eurasian water milfoil delineation and assessment surveys conducted by Blue Water Science. District staff will continue to develop and evaluate the early detection and rapid response plan with the purpose of increasing overall effectiveness and efficiency. For a positive report of a new AIS introduction, Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District will communicate findings with local DNR specialists and all interested parties of the discovery and provide relevant updates as the investigation and management plannings unfold. Following whatever outcome of the project, communicate to partners, DNR, and the public the results and future management plans. As previously mentioned, district staff performed several purple loosestrife assessment surveys in 2025 with the purpose of implementing a future loosestrife beetle biocontrol management following DNR guidelines. 3 sites with suitable conditions have been identified with large stands for sustaining beetle populations and ease of access. Forest Lake Public Launch 3, Keewatin adjacent to the Highway 97 and Keewatin Ave intersection, and the Shallow Pond area adjacent to the Hawk Meadow Park Trail system. In 2026, district staff will implement purple loosestrife biocontrol management efforts following DNR beetle rearing and releasing guidelines. Additionally, staff will create a guidance document and the potential outreach plan with the purpose of assessing the feasibility of expanding this into a citizen volunteer program in 2027 or future years. District staff will continue to investigate and identify any potential non-native Phragmites populations in the field. These are then reported using the EDD Maps application that the DNR and MASRIC use for determining potential future treatment locations. An example of the EDD Maps pictured here indicates that the Phragmites populations are present and within close proximity of the district's borders, though currently not a large issue as only 2 non-native stands were observed in 2025.